Okay, we are live. Happy Thursday, everybody. This is Tommy Danielsen here with the Miles and Points Report. Thank you to all of the over 1,000 new subscribers we've gotten in the last week on YouTube, which is really, really cool that we've seen so many more people being interested in hearing our dribble and all of our reports and things like that. Today we have a special treat. We have the chair of our Loyalty Summit, which is the world's most awesome loyalty conference for business to business. David Feldman with us, and welcome, David. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Tommy.
So, how are things in Southern California?
Hey, it's winter. It's winter. It's cold. It's like 60 degrees.
50 degrees. That's the same as here. That's kind of It's this one of those things where you see the lawn chair in Orange County when there's like a big storm coming by and the lawn chair is flipped over and it says "We shall rebuild." Is that kind of a winter we have?
It's the
a lot of people talk shit about California, but hey, what can I tell you? I'm looking at all the reports from across the country this week. It kind of looks like we're doing okay over here, even with only 50 degrees.
Exactly.
All right, so we've got some minor interesting thing and some pretty interesting things this week for our schedule. So the headline this week, and I saw some reports out there. So the JetBlue merger, JetBlue and Spirit merger acquisition. So JetBlue was trying to buy Spirit, and it seems like the authorities have decided that that's a no-go.
Yeah, look, it's interesting, Tommy. You got to remember, you go back a bit of time. Everybody wanted Spirit on the dance card. Frontier. The whole Frontier wanted to have a go with Spirit, and the whole thing with JetBlue was to sort of thwart the whole Frontier approach as well. So not only do you have the regulatory hurdles, which clearly they weren't able to get across, but there was also the overpaying and everything else as well. So it's a complicated situation. Now, ultimately, the regulator says no. So where do they go from here? That's that's obviously the interesting question going forward. And no, my crystal ball is as good as your crystal ball, but it goes back. You can kind of take a step back and say, well, if you are, a shareholder or an employee of Spirit or vice versa with JetBlue, how do you feel about this not going through? Probably if you're JetBlue or your crew for JetBlue, you're probably pretty happy about this result.
Right. Well, I think that neither one of those two airlines are financially doing very well right now. I think that's the understatement of the day. So I wouldn't call it a match made in heaven also because the products that they have is completely different. I think that Frontier and Spirit has a lot in common. But JetBlue and Spirit not so much.
Yeah, look, and you can almost say, I've seen some speculation about, okay, well, does Spirit and Frontier go back to talking to each other? The reality is the regulator's probably going to find just as many potential problems with Frontier and Spirit getting together than they did Spirit and JetBlue. So I'm not sure that's really a live, feasible discussion for anybody going forward. There's obviously smarter people than you and I having these discussions and deliberations as we speak. But, look, who knows what's going to happen? That's the truth of the matter, right? Before all this talk, started, there wasn't any talk that any of these airlines weren't viable to continue as they are. Now, obviously, part of the discussion today is, hey, is Spirit a viable contender to just continue as it is? What about JetBlue? Look, are those legitimate? Are those panic discussions? Time will tell.
Yeah, I think they're looking at the financials. So Spirit was doing fairly well and was definitely a contender to stand on its own 2 feet before the pandemic. It has been the last year and a half has been kind of worrisome, and it's worrisome that we saw last year when we saw a lot of the summer of 2023, we saw a lot of crazy travel and a lot of crazy pricing happening over the summer. And Spirit was able to lose in the third quarter of the year. We saw the report coming out for through September, and they lost $40 million.
Yeah, and look, you could also argue that for both of these airlines that their focus has been a little distracted as they've been working towards what they thought was a fait accompli with this merger. So whether getting back to focusing on the core business is what they need to do. I mean, we'll see what happens, but I think all the options are being actively considered by those that are in the power of decision making.
Right. Well, it's worth noting that the airlines that have struggled are the one, Spirit is obviously the one that has the weakest or /no frequent flyer program to lean on. And I think that it's safe to say that if we were to take Advantage away to the level that Spirit's loyalty program is, I think Advantage American would also have lost money last year.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question about that. I mean, the legacy majors have, they have the scale and they have the critical mass and the sheer volume and momentum they have with their programs, and the number of zeros that come in terms of revenue that they bring in from their co-brand relationships. I mean, as we know, that all three of the majors could be as anti-customer as they try to be, and they're still going to, the momentum is so strong, they're still going to move forward. They're not going to collapse overnight. But in hindsight, yes, would JetBlue and Spirit be in stronger positions had they invested more aggressively in years past in growing their frequent flyer programs? Maybe. But Advantage and Sky Miles and Mileage Plus are there where they are today from, decades worth of growth.
Yeah, I think it's not just that. It's also when your business model is based on fares that are dirt low and ancillary is critical to how you make money, and those status levels that you have that are available with their competitors. They give you the bags, they give you the seats, and all those things that Spirit needs to make money from. They don't have the same path of giving away all of that stuff, so it's just not as viable as it is with another product. What do we think it would happen next? The speculation today is that first of all, mega mergers in the U.S. has been a thing, and rarely is it good for the consumer. Is that a good statement, or do we not agree on that?
No, look, it's probably true, and I think that's where the regulators, put their foot down this time. Now you could, there's going to be plenty of people that are going to argue they should have drawn the line, previously, perhaps, between US Air and American, but then they'd argue that, okay, well, what about the major legacies that went before them? At some point, or Alaska, Virgin America, at some point, the line in the sand gets drawn, and this is where we are.
Yeah, it's the market. It's like in Europe we have 30 plus airlines. In the US we really have like 9, right? So it's the thing, and it also drove the prices up in the US in the last couple of years a lot more than we saw in the rest of the world. But it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. The next thing I wanted to talk to you about, it's about our buddy Julian Keel. You met Julian a couple of times,
yes,
right? Julian used to write for the Points Guy. He is a cool guy. I like him a lot, and it's been quiet for him for a while, and he's been working on a project. Everybody's working on project, and here we are, you and I sucking our thumbs and not making any money, and while guys are doing IPOs. And what we've seen, there's a lot of programs out there like Point Me or Award Logic and things like that are helping you to search for award availability. But it's like, I'm not doing cartwheels over either one of those two. Point Me is like, it's been hyped up with all of the bloggers. It's friends of ours that run it, and they've raised a ton of money, and they're working their thing. But do you pay $250 a year to have access to these tools?
Absolutely not. I don't. But that said, there's a market for it, and there's certainly in the past I've certainly used various premium tools for certain purposes. But the reality is that the hype or not, the size of the market of potential customers to pay significant figures for premium award search tools, I mean, it's tiny. It's absolutely minuscule. So, the ability to scale to volume, unless the product is, literally, pennies, it's, from a B2C perspective, I think that I'm very skeptical on the amount of runway that there is for these
Yeah, I completely agree with that. But there's also another thing. It's really not that easy to use. You go in and you sit there and you search, and it's really not. It's still a pain in the ass.
The other thing is,
it takes the time to do.
I think the other thing, Tommy, is, and we've seen this in the past with various tools and all the rest of it. Even if you have agreements from the supplying, the airlines, hotels, whatever, they can terminate those at any point. They can pull the rug out from under you if they decide that they don't want to play in that space anymore, and your entire business model falls apart. So I'm skeptical about that. That said, I also think that, where it's a little bit of a distraction to focus on the obvious B2C offering of these products. I think that the real opportunity, if you're an investor or whatever else looking at that, is where's the opportunity here for B2B? So thinking about integration in other tools, whether it's integration into Built, or whether it
must be doing that. But
here's Expedia or Google at the back end.
Right. And we were talking about Google. So look at this. So I wanted to show you guys kind of what we've seen today. What has Julian been up to? And this is a different thing. It's literally in Google Flights. So this is my Google Flights. And it came out of beta today. And I noticed it today on LinkedIn that he was doing it. It's a Google extensions, meaning that you go to their Points Path website, and then you get the extension comes via email after a couple of seconds, and then you can pull the extension in. And here's what it does. So if I were to go to visit you, for example, actually you're complicated. If I were to go to San Diego, and where there are a lot of nonstop flights, and I pick a random date here. What it does then, this is how you look for airfare, right? But guess what? Look at that extra column here. Look at the extra column that's over here. It will immediately search for award availability for every flight that's that day. So obviously we still have, he's got Delta, he's got American, he's got Alaska. And Southwest is not in here either, but that's kind of an irrelevant thing because, they're not showing even their price on Google Flights. But what he's literally is doing, he is searching in Google Flight, and he's also comparing. So when you see the arrow here, he says, use miles because that's the best value. Mm-hmm. Obviously, he goes through LAX, so we're not going to do that. But, and if we were to go, for example, from let's try LAX to London, and everybody uses Google Flights to look for their flights. That's just the easiest way to pull it all up, right? So here we have the United Nonstop. They've got one going through Denver, and so as you can see, there are some airlines that are not covered yet. But look at that. Instead of going in, you got the award availability for American. You got the award availability for British Airways with the ridiculous fuel surcharges, and also for the United stuff. All of it in the same place. And I think that is freaking brilliant stuff. I absolutely think that. And he's also the reason why it came out later. See, look at this. Here's one. Stop in Chicago, 29,000 miles. And if we want to do business class, obviously we're looking at steerage here. But if we were to go to do business class, it does exactly the same thing, right? And
no surprise with those results.
Well, it's a lot of it has to do with the price.
There we go.
And it is actually available. The nonstop is 80,000, which is isn't that the redemption that they want now?
Yeah, I mean, it's still not unreasonable. I mean, a few years ago, you'd be looking at about what 55,000 or something. So, but 80,000 is pretty much the standard that they'll ask for that now.
Yeah, it's gone up a little bit, but as you can see, you can go and you can search. So the reason why it's showing like this is because it goes next to the price, right?
Yeah.
You have to go in order to find BA and those guys. Let me see, where are they even? How do you sort by price? or we can do, for example, as you know, we can do a nonstop only, right? That's an easy way to get what's available.
Mm-hmm.
So here you can see United and American and British Airways. So British Airways has the standard award with 57.5 is the normal thing, plus 730 through. Wow, that is cash that they want from you. And for that day, Virgin is obviously, I don't know what this is about. Virgin, that must be with Delta. Yeah. So I guess they don't have the deal with Virgin just yet because it's showing Delta miles right there, right? But I think that what's missing is Flying Blue. If they get Flying Blue in here, I see that they haven't had that. This is a solid tool for sure. I think that this is just much easier. You don't have to log on. You don't have to do any of that stuff. You don't have to make search after search and all that kind of stuff. You can just also that you can compare, meaning that I buy a lot of one ways and you can see if it's actually worth it or not, right? Wow. So wait a minute. So, this is business class, of course. Yeah. So 100,000 miles on United. Is this ANA or is it United that leaves in the morning? Oh, it's United. So that's that's not cool. So this must be, so United has 2 daily out of, wow, that's kind of crazy. And I think that it's also not showing partnerships with some of these airlines just yet. But I'm sure this is a beta version of it. And if you were to go to, for example, from London to intra Europe or intra wherever, I don't know if they have Qantas. Let's try for you to head back home to your roots there. And see what they have got going on with that. And also this is free, and he's going to keep it free. So why on earth? This is like a million times better than any of the tools that are out there that charges $200 a year. Of course, this is Australia. So is it really 250,000? Is that how much it costs to do a redemption? That can't be right. That must be a super peak award, right?
Which one? Which amount?
250,000 miles one way.
Yeah. There's like no saver awards, across the Pacific right now. Not to Australia. I mean,
And you can also do premium, and then you can do cheap. So this is every class is here. Qantas doesn't show availability. Don't they have that available? Don't they usually?
Yeah, I'm going to guess that they just probably don't have a pipe in there yet. There should probably be for economy. There should be availability generally. Right. I mean, it depends on the date, but generally speaking, I'm going to say there's going to be availability on Qantas. Yeah.
So I'm going to say, well done, Julian. I am super impressed, and that says a lot. I am not. This is cool, and it's free, and I totally recommend it. And here's the website. It's pointspath.com. It's where you can download the free. And also people who are like, oh, I don't want to have an extension on my browser. It's
sure, but this is a good example. This is a good example of what we're talking about, and that is that your premium award product, search product, is only as valuable as the next person that comes along and does it for free or better. So and with a better integration. And
right,
I think that it's great to see a lot of work and innovation on this front. I know that some hardcore mileage junkies lament the old days where you actually had to be an expert and have some skill to be able to go and find these things. So therefore, finders keepers, but the majority of people found it too hard to be able to find awards.
Right.
Look, I think this is better. It makes everybody's task easier, and ultimately, if people are upset at the airlines for not having enough award inventory, there is a tipping point where the airlines have to actually start coughing up more. We're seeing a lot of that. Qantas is under fire a lot with that right now, and they've been forced to, and same with BA, they've been forced to increase inventory.
Right. Yeah, no, I honestly think that this checks all the boxes for me, to be honest with you. This is by far the easiest and the best tool there is, even if it's not available for all channels just yet. But it's for us that know a little bit more. Like, for example, if you see that it's available on United and also, for example, on or Canada or whatever, it'll show up. It most likely is available at Avianca or other Star Alliance partners. So I give this tools a 2 thumbs up, and it's revolutionary. Not only do they do it a lot better and easier, they also do it for free, and also in a tool that you use that most people should be using to look for airfare. Is that fair enough?
Yeah, I 100% agree.
All right, cool. So that's the point. What were they called again? What are we called?
Points Path.
Yes, pointspath.com. Go check it out. Download it for free before they start charging money. Quick hits here. Alaska Airlines. Ben is reporting today that Alaska has a sale where you can purchase your miles. Have you ever bought any Alaska miles?
Not for a very long time, but when they're on sale, that's a good deal.
60% is so what he does, he tracks them, right? 50-60%. So it feels like this is it's now the 18th until the 24th. They're for sale for 60% off. If you have you only should buy miles. I think that the advice is you should only buy miles and points if you have a specific plan in front of you where you're a few miles short or for an award, or if you have a specific award that's available that you want to redeem for, that's good value. Do you think that's a fair assessment?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, unless you have a reason for it, then there's absolutely no point just buying them to hold on to them.
Cool. Good times. All right. Next thing. What is that? It is American Airlines are offering award tickets for only $5,000 per one way. So they are on select flights and the 14-day advance purchase, and looks like what's showing up here is Milwaukee to Phoenix, DFW to JFK, $7,000. So they're having some, low season. We're in the lowest of low seasons right now, so it's good to pump out some good awards.
Yeah, look, this is no different to what we've seen, regular occasions in the past every year, and that is that there are going to be discounted routes and flights and times that you can, pick up award seats for very, very few miles. But the problem is you'll also find that these flights, if you're paying cash, are probably dirt cheap as well. Right.
Exactly. All right. Moving on to status. Did you lose any status this year?
Most likely. I haven't really thought about it a lot because I don't care about it anywhere near as much as I used to.
Looks like United doesn't have a formal published program to support status extensions. There's plenty of customer reports that a call or an email has gotten status extended for customers that didn't re-earn it during 2023. They're about to see their status drop on February 1st. If you're in that boat, you might reach out to MileagePlus too. Whoa, they're going to get some calls now. Woo.
Yeah, look, I think United has always been pretty good in terms of accommodating legitimate requests from members in terms of whether it's extensions or some form of accommodation or what have you. I mean, they're not gonna do this for you on a yearly basis. They had a bit of a mixed approach coming out of COVID, where actually there were a lot of 1Ks in some areas, particularly Asia Pacific, for example, that were just automatically granted an extra extension, and then there were a ton that weren't. There was a little bit of no rhyme or reason necessarily with who got an extra extension there and who didn't. We've then had a bit of a normal year status-wise, and I think we're sort of settling into a new equilibrium where, if you have a legitimate reason, parental leave, for example, is a good example. United's probably going to at least consider your request. At the same time, this isn't a shortcut to just, parentally extend it, without actually, any real flying activity. It's just like the status match. Officially, they don't match as far as Premier 1K. The reality is if you're top status with American or Delta, they'll definitely consider it.
Right. Yeah, I think that I was not aware of this at all. I've never heard of it. I know that, some of the airlines has a set thing, but, the problem is that probably some people are going to take advantage of this thing. But again, if you are a flyer that earned status through the pandemic and you are kind of a low spender, they're probably going to look at that as well. If you haven't qualified and you got because didn't we get last year? I don't care because I'm lifetime, so I don't worry about it anymore. But wasn't it something where we got? I think I got like 2,000 PQMs or the Premier qualifying whatever it is. No, it's called PQPs in the beginning of the year last year as a start. I think
there was still a head start beginning of last year. Yeah.
So instead of doing that, you can actually give them a call and see or you can do something like that and see if they want to extend it for you. And speaking of, last but not least today, I heard that I'm not on the Twitter anymore. I decided not to go on the Twitter. And it looks like this is is it from the Twitter or is it from the TikTok? But it seems like I'm not going to play it for obvious reasons. But it looks like Scott Kirby has been roasted because in 2011, he did a holiday Halloween drag show. Did you hear about this?
Yeah, you got to remember in 2011, Scott Kirby was back with Doug Parker at US Airways before they'd taken over American Airlines.
He was reeling from his galactically stupid idea of charging $2 for a Coke back in 2008.
Wasn't that for water? Yeah.
No, it
was that the year later? I can't remember.
Yeah, Kirby is what I coined him being back then because that's what he wanted.
Doug Parker as CEO had this tradition of dressing up for Halloween, and he had his senior staff join him for these dress ups and all the rest of it. It's just a weird tradition, quirky, whatever. Some people like it, we're into it. Some people were like, "You're an idiot. You're meant to be an airline CEO." It didn't really matter. It was his way of trying to, build up some morale amongst the staff. And, and guess what? Scott Kirby, as a senior executive, got dragged into these things. This is 13 years ago.
Yeah. I think it's obviously it's the last since 2016 up till now. There are the weirdest things that conservatives get excited about and gets outraged about. And I don't even know what to say.
I think there's plenty of people at American and United and US Airways that, had that worked for them that had plenty of reasons to be outraged at Scott Kirby or Doug Parker from time to time. But, and their various unions had things to say about it.
Did they even get an agreement, or aren't they still doing that?
What's that?
The flight attendant. Did they get an agreement, or are they still not?
For American, I think they're seeking leave to strike. I think is the latest. I've only half been keeping attention.
Isn't that the old deal that they haven't even implemented from back in those days? I'm not following that. That's not what we are experts about in an airline, obviously.
As you like to joke, Tommy, the only thing American Airlines is good at is delays. So it's they're not high on my list right now, and I don't pay too much attention.
Yeah, and I think having fun I was actually down in for Halloween of last year. I was down in Atlanta visiting Delta on the day of Halloween, and they had everybody in that office were dressed up. So, and I think a lot of the dudes there were, it's a dress up day. What's the big deal? All right, that's the wrap for this week. Excited about the new tool that Julian has made, and I recommend that you go and check that out because that is pretty darn cool. And thank you, David, for stopping by today. It's a great time to have you instead of Rudy and Marshall and Jamie, who are the ones who are usually here. Marshall's cool, though. He knows a lot about things that I don't know a lot about, like cruise ship and stuff like that. Like last week, we were talking about that world's largest cruise ship that sailed into Miami last week. Did you see that?
I saw pictures.
Yeah, cool. We will see you guys next Thursday, where we will be back to our normal things. And David, don't be a stranger. Stop by anytime.
Thanks, Tommy.
Cheers.